All right, hello everybody, welcome back. So we just finished up our video on the upper extremity, upper arm muscles. So now we'll take more of an in-depth look at the upper extremity lower arm muscles, or your forearm muscles. So again, I'm basing this off of the upper extremity muscle list that you can find in Sakai under lab resources and then under upper extremity muscles. And so we will begin with where we left off last time, with your brachioradialis. So brachioradialis can be right here. Again, it comes down from the forearm and then up on across your elbow joint and on to your humerus. And then the next thing I want to look at is my Pronator Teres, which will be right next to it, right next to your brachioradialis. So I look at these two muscles first because these will help me find out where the rest of my forearm muscles are. So these kind of help me get my bearings, figure out where I am on the forearm before I start going through and labeling the rest. And another way you can find these two muscles is that they kind of create this V right here. And in that V on the other side here, we can see our biceps. Here's our short head and our long head. They kind of run down across the elbow and in between this V right here. So my pronator teres on one side of the V and the brachioradialis on the other. So then once I find those, then I can kind of go through and start labeling the rest of my forearm muscles. So there's brachioradialis and pronator teres. Before we move on, I just want to move to the back here to show you this tiny muscle that also crosses the elbow joint. This guy will be our Anconeus. Anconeus kind of works with the triceps to extend the elbow. So that will be your Anconeus. And then if we move back to the other side here, so again, here's our brachioradialis, our pronator teres. If we remove our brachioradialis, we'll get a better look at this muscle right here, which kind of swoops around from the back. This will be our supinator. So our supinator swoops around. It'll be found underneath your brachioradialis there. So here's our supinator. So again, let's bring back the brachioradialis. There it is. And we will continue. So again, brachioradialis, pronator teres, and then one more unique muscle is going to be this guy down here, pronator quadratus. It's kind of this muscle that runs horizontally, kind of horizontal at an angle a little bit across your wrist here, or the lower portion of your forearm, kind of connecting your radius and ulna. So this guy right here will be your pronator quadratus. All right, so now let's start getting into a little bit of the more complicated ones. So again, brachioradialis, pronator teres. We'll first take a look at our flexors. So the flexors will be on the anterior side and kind of, right next to your pronator teres. So the pronator teres, right next to that one, will first be your flexor carpi radialis. This guy right here. And then next in the sequence will be this guy on top, your palmaris longus. And this one you can find by looking at where that tendon goes to, right in the middle of your palm. So this will be our palmaris longus. And then if we move on again, next to that guy right here, staying superficial, will be your flexor carpi ulnaris. So flexor carpi ulnaris. So again, pronator teres, flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, and then flexor carpi ulnaris. So now let's look at a deeper view So we'll hide our flexor carpi. Let me bring that back 1 second. Yeah, our flexor carpi radialis. We'll hide our palmaris longus, hide the pronator teres for now. And underneath here, you'll see this big guy. This will be your Flexor Digitorum superficialis. So Flexor Digitorum, just like how we saw on our lower leg, you have your Flexor Digitorum longus. This will be your Flexor Digitorum superficialis. So we're flexing the digits here. You can see each of these tendons going to each of the fingers, responsible for flexing our fingers and making them into a fist. So this will be your Flexor Digitorum superficialis. And if we hide this and go 1 layer deeper, you'll find your Flexor pollicis longus. And then next to that, you'll find your Flexor Digitorum profundus. So Flexor Digitorum profundus, more medial than the Flexor pollicis longus. And Flexor pollicis longus, you can remember, is on the lateral side because it's going to be on the same side as your thumb here, because we're talking about the pollicis. So Flexor pollicis longus. So that will be your flexors. So let's bring back all these muscles here. All right, and then we will take a look at the extensors of the forearm, or of the wrist. So our extensors, again, let's get our bearings here. So we have our Pronator Teres, our Brachioradialis, creating this V for us. So we started at the Pronator Teres when we're looking at our flexors. We'll start with the Brachioradialis when we're looking at our extensors. So let's get a little bit of a different angle here. So here's the Brachioradialis. And then we'll start with, right next to it, our Extensor Carpi Radialis longus. So Extensor Carpi Radialis longus, right next to your Brachioradialis. And then right next to that, next in the sequence will be your Extensor Carpi Radialis brevis. So we go Brachioradialis, Extensor Carpi Radialis longus, and then Extensor Carpi Radialis brevis. All right, and then we'll continue on. So right next to that will be your Extensor Digitorum. So remember, on the flexor side, we had our Flexor Digitorum superficialis, but on this side, it's just Extensor Digitorum. So right next to your Extensor Carpi Radialis brevis, Extensor Digitorum. And then next to that one, we'll find our Extensor Digiti Minimi. This guy also a little bit of a unique one, a little bit easier to find because you can see that this tendon goes straight to your little finger here, your pinky. So you can think of that as your mini digit, or your digiti minimi. So Extensor Digiti Minimi right there. And then finally on your extensors, you'll have your Extensor Carpi Ulnaris. And then just for some perspective here, so here's your Extensor Carpi Ulnaris, and then right next to that is going to be your Flexor Carpi Ulnaris. So here's kind of the line between your flexors and your extensors. So there's that. So those are your superficial forearm extensor muscles. And so you can see, again, if we run through it one more time, Brachioradialis, Extensor Carpi Radialis longus, Extensor Carpi Radialis brevis, Extensor Digitorum, Extensor Digiti Minimi, and then Extensor Carpi Ulnaris. All right, so now let's take a little bit of a deeper look at things. So we'll remove our Extensor Carpi Ulnaris, remove the Digiti Minimi, remove Digitorum, our Radialis, and then we'll take a look at these muscles here. So just as a little reminder, up here, this is a different view of our supinator. So if we remember from this anterior view, we took away the brachioradialis, And we saw here this supinator swooping down, down and across here onto the radius. So here's your supinator, just from a different angle. And then again, up here is your Anconeus, again, just for some different perspectives on these muscles. So yeah, so let's keep going. So on this side, we'll find this muscle right here, which will be your abductor pollicis longus. So again, a muscle that goes to your thumb, your pollex, the pollicis longus. So this big guy running down here and going right into your thumb, abductor pollicis longus. And then this guy beneath it will be your extensor pollicis longus. Again, a muscle that goes down and straight to the thumb. And then in between those two, you'll have your extensor pollicis brevis. So some people like to think of this one as a brevis sandwich. So you have your abductor pollicis longus, and then in between, or next in the sequence, you have your pollicis brevis, and sandwich that on top of another longus of your extensor pollicis longus. So longus, brevis, longus. You have your brevis sandwich. All right, and then move on to the next one. You'll see this muscle right here, right underneath your extensor pollicis longus. You'll find your extensor indices. This one you can remember, indices is kind of sounds like your index finger. So this muscle is responsible for extending your index finger. Extensor indices. All right, if we move around, we'll move on to our final muscles here. So here, let's see. Let me pause the recording and then we'll come back with a different angle. All right, so finally, we'll be taking a look at some of the muscles you can find right on the hand. So we're going to be looking at mainly just groups of muscles here. So your thenar eminence will be the first one. And it's going to be this group of muscles in this area right here. It's made up of 4 intrinsic muscles. You don't need to know them specifically, but just this area right here will be your thenar eminence. And then right next to that, on this side, is going to be the hypothenar eminence. So that thenar eminence is that meaty part of your thumb on your palm. So this area right here, this meaty area, that'll be your thenar eminence. And then kind of more towards the palm side, next to your thumb will be the hypothenar eminence. All right, so that will do it for the muscles of the forearm. Again, I encourage you to go back through, maybe watch the video on mute. As I'm pointing things out, say them out loud, quiz yourself, come on visible body, get yourself familiar with the different angles, different points of view, hide certain muscles so you can get better angles and everything. So just familiarize yourself with these muscles, and then move on to your innervations, actions, origin insertions, functional groupings, stuff like that. Just a little bit every day will help. So yeah, if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to any of the TAs, your lab instructor, professors. We're all here to help. So that'll do it. And I hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you next time. Bye.